Santa Claus Conquers the Martians is the worst movie I've ever seen. This movie took me about 3 years to watch. First year I was like, yeah, I'll watch this week of Christmas and then I'll make a review on Christmas Day. There were several problems with that plan. First off, it takes a while to make a good video, but also, I just underestimated how terrible the movie was. I couldn't muster up the motivation to get through it. Second year, I decided I'd begin watching it at the beginning of December. Again, I overestimated my abilities. This year, I laid down the law. I said, Cade, you're gonna start in October, just to be safe. You're gonna get through this movie. And then after partaking in the first 10 to 15 minutes, I slacked off until November. Now, of course, this year I got through it, primarily because I watched it with my friends as moral support. To be painfully honest, I can't properly review this movie without answering two questions. The primary one being why? Why did they make this? And number two, why is it remembered? There are thousands of good-for-nothing bad movies that have been lost with time. Why didn't this one get lost with them? It's not just that it didn't get lost, though. It's that this movie is held up as a cult classic. I mean, this movie has a stage play adaptation, and seasoned and unseasoned cinephiles alike continue to watch this film despite being told over and over and over again how bad it is. Why is this movie's continual existence a factor in our universe? The second question I have to ask myself is how? How did I legitimately enjoy this film? And how did this film actually get me in the Christmas spirit?
Their singing fills the air. Oh, why can't every day be like Christmas? Why can't that feeling go on endlessly? For if every day could be just like Christmas, what a wonderful world this would be.
For those of you who haven't ever seen or heard of this film, which is probably most of you, I'll do a quick plot summary. Spoilers if you care. It's almost Christmas season on Earth, so as per tradition, Santa Claus is getting interviewed. Well, at least this movie's universe makes more sense than the Santa Claus universe, where the parents don't believe in Santa despite the fact that random presents that they didn't buy keep showing up in their houses for their kids. Anyways, kids on Mars are literally in a dystopia where their brains are tied to machines. Some adults go to a weird wizard guy who tells them they have to kidnap Santa Claus so that the kids know what fun is. Our main characters are Kimar, no-nonsense leader, Voldar, the evil dude with the mustache, and Drapo, goofy social pariah, who destroys the movie's world building by having the attitude of a little kid. Also, he's kind of the adopted man-child / ignorant slave to Kimar. Yeah, that's actually a thing. The Martians decide to kidnap Santa Claus despite Voldar's insistence that it's a bad idea. Santa makes everybody on Mars happier as per prophecy, and they force him to do Christmas. At first, Santa's down for it because he's Santa, but he realizes that he can't do Christmas on Earth as well and becomes depressed. Oh yeah, and Voldar decides that happiness destroys the sense of order on Mars, so he decides that Santa can't do Christmas anywhere. Drapo begins fantasizing about being Santa and the villains not being able to tell the difference between human and Martian, kidnap their fellow alien. When they realize they've kidnapped Drapo as opposed to Santa, they go after the real human Santa by attacking his workshop. Santa hatches a plan and begins torturing his assailants with toys. Justice is served, and Santa, realizing that Drapo wants to be the Santa Claus on Mars officially nominates Drapo as the Santa Claus on Mars. Santa then flies back on Earth on a rocket just in time for Christmas. That's it. That's the movie. And yeah, I left out quite a bit. Like how there's an entire subplot about two kids getting kidnapped along with Santa, and the fact that there's a literal robot in this movie. Even then, Saint Nick really didn't conquer anything, and to be honest, I'm kind of disappointed at the fact that there isn't a cage match scene between Santa and Voldar for the fate of Mars.
Here, I got you for 3 minutes! 3 minutes of playtime! Ah!
Anyways, I wrote down some notes about my general thoughts and ideas. This is a movie about a kidnapped man effectively changing the ideology of an entire planet. What if this is canon to the John Carter universe?
What has happened to the great warriors of our planet? Mars used to be the planet of war.
Maybe he did conquer Mars by changing their ideology. Still mad there isn't a cage match scene. Voldar's Martian Mellows monologue is the best villain monologue in cinematic history.
That's what you're all becoming. Marshmallows. Soft. Weak. That old man is a menace.
Santa's about to get these kids ejected into space. Quote from one of my friends. Santa derives torture from the torture of these two men. Drapo's arc was amazing. Seriously, this is not a joke. I got invested in his character. However, of course, he wasn't enough to save this movie. That should go without saying. Which I guess brings us back to our primary question of why. Imagine being a filmmaker who made a pretty alright movie in the 60s, and you're feeling like, yeah, maybe this movie could be remembered in the future. And 50 years later, it's this movie that gets watched instead. Part of it could be ironic admiration, but then we return to the question of how. How did I legitimately enjoy watching this movie this time around? It's actually the worst movie I've ever seen, no doubt, but I somehow enjoyed watching it more than I enjoyed watching some other below-average but bearable movies. How was I in the Christmas spirit in early November after watching this horrendous film? Really, I think it boils down to 3 factors. Number 1. This movie was made in the 60s. And I really think number 1 is a personal thing, but when I think of 60s Christmas movies, I always think of Rudolph. Call it the nostalgia factor, because that's what it is. This movie, for one reason or another, reminds me of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, again, one of those movies that gets me in the Christmas spirit. However, this isn't the primary reason, because Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is an incredible movie, while Santa Claus Conquers the Martians isn't. So, this brings us to number 2. The Christmas arc. I'm about to babble on about character arcs for a while, so buckle up. Character arcs are possibly the most important parts of any story. Goes kind of like this. Essentially, a character has a flaw that's corrupting their life. They also have one thing that they want more than anything else. In order to get what they want, they have to overcome their primary flaw. This is the nature of every character arc. The flaw is also often called the lie, so that's the nomenclature I'll be using from here on out. Anyways, to replace their lie, the character must accept a new truth about themselves or the world, or yeah. This new truth is always the theme or the message of the story. So there's your storytelling tip for the day. In Christmas movies, it always goes the same. There's a grumpy character who's constantly ruining his life because he's grumpy. And through the power of Christmas, they become a better man who's usually more devoted to his or her family. Somehow, this repetitiveness really isn't a problem. This is probably because every now and then we have something called a flat arc. A flat arc is where, instead of the main character learning the lesson of the story, and overcoming their. It's the side character who has to learn to overcome their flaw or their lie, and it's the main character who's teaching them this. Look at the difference between A Christmas Carol and Elf for more information. This, of course, happens in SHCTM. That's a terrible abbreviation. Okay. Santa makes the Martians a more joyful people. This would definitely be the most accurate answer, but this arc doesn't work because it overlooked the most important aspect of character arcs. You have to make us care about the characters first. We don't care about their growth unless we care about them. The only character I really liked was Droppo, and he was already jolly when the movie began. So we've struck out. Once again. Number 3. This movie is just fun to watch, and I mean that in the same way as Good Burger, where it sucks, but it's unintentionally funny that way. Out of all 3 of these, this was the one that I cling to the most. However, if this theory were true, then why couldn't I get through it in previous years? The answer is because I didn't really enjoy it as much in previous years. That said, if you asked me this year what I thought about the movie, I would give it the classic "so bad it's good" moniker. Number 3 should be my answer, and yet I'm missing something. What's the independent variable?
Sleigh bells ring, are you listening? In the lane, snow is glistening, a beautiful sight, we're happy tonight.
We have to return to the fact that this movie was so bad that I couldn't muster up the motivation to watch it until this year, where I had my friends as moral support. However, maybe them being there was something more than that? Take it from a guy who used to sit alone and watch Batman Returns every Christmas year. They can be fun, but Christmas movies are better when you're watching them with other people. I remember sitting in a Discord call and watching a terrible movie with my friends, and just loving it. And as unfortunate as it is to admit, it wasn't because of Droppo. Sorry, Droppo. It was because of my friends. It's because I enjoy having fun with my friends and family. Honestly, isn't that what Christmas is all about? Aside from Jesus, of course. So, it turns out why and how have the same answer. So, finally, here's my actual review. Santa Claus Conquers the Martians is an atrocious movie. Terrible effects, terrible characters, except for Droppo, and terrible opening and closing theme, which is the same theme. That said, this movie is so much fun when watching it with friends. Disclaimer, do not watch this movie if you care for yourself, but if you're looking for a movie to heckle with friends, you can't get much better than Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. That's how Santa Claus Conquers the Martians is an awesome Christmas movie, because it brings us together. And before you ask, yeah, I ripped several veins with how far I'm reaching here.